So Doomies, we have reached the Doom Patrol Season 4 mid-season finale. Yes, I know I have to say it again, but people keep wondering where Titans is right now, thinking even that show has ended its 4th season. But no, like Titans, Doom Patrol is coming back with 6 episodes sometime in the future. We don't have any dates, but this episode gave us a series of events that I think led to a decent mid-season finale in terms of what is yet to come, because with the way things ended, with the Buttpocalypse threat reawakening, and I think many of you had that in the back of your mind, since we couldn't forget about that were-butt in the freezer. But then we have the seemingly larger threat of this season, which is the Immortus Rising thing. So let's get into this. As always, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Any theories you have going ahead, because I would love to read it. Quite simply, I haven't seen any of the next episodes that are coming out, so your guess is as good as mine. So right away we pick up with Jane waking up in Cliff's car. This is immediately more or less after the events of the previous episode. We can't forget that Jane had her longevity taken from her from Bunbury and the Knights Templar, if you will, when Jane was just a baby. Now, I don't know why I didn't remember this. It's kind of a good thing I didn't, because I'd already seen the next episode, this episode that is, last week, and I was saying I didn't know why Bunbury took the longevity, but it was revealed in this episode from Mark Sheppard's Willoughby Kipling that they took Jane's longevity to kind of protect it, to prevent Immortus from getting it, which I suppose makes sense. I guess the Knights Templar saw the Doom Patrol and just kind of think, yeah, that they can't be trusted. I mean, Rita's already had hers taken, but not even they could protect it, because as we saw with Kipling later, I believe he had Bunbury's little lucky rabbit foot. So that's all that remains of Bunbury. And in this moment as well, we had Cliff's oven mitt talking to him, which was certainly a very Doom Patrol avenue to go down. But meanwhile, Jane went into the underground, and it seems like all the other personalities are doing their own puzzles, which makes sense. Don't forget that each personality is kind of like a splinter or like a version of K, and so just like how Jane is finding her purpose, they're kind of in the midst of finding their own purposes as well. But when Jane goes down, since she's realizing that her longevity has now been taken, she's aged, she's kind of a bit pissed off that nobody is really caring that Kay Chalice has had her longevity taken, which is kind of true. They're all too concerned with finding their purpose, but without Kay's longevity, I guess the body that, yes, Jane is primary of, will age up until the point of dying. I guess that's the threat, because the Doom Patrol have been living for a long time, and without the immortality aspect from the Immortus project, that I guess they will turn into Palpatine sooner or later. But we also have her head to Shelley Byron's little construct, her little room, if you will, and she says that she's ready, but obviously there's a bit of hesitancy there. I think Jane at the same time is also freaking out with, why does everything always have to be so hard? She acknowledges that she wants to start living for herself, especially after the interaction that she had with Kay Chalice in Youth Patrol. But with everything that's going on, by the time we see her going back into her room, she's holding the puzzle pieces saying she doesn't want to die. And I do like with what they kind of wrote here, just as she's kind of getting ready to, I guess, embrace this new journey with Shelley, she feels the threat of, just as she's about to start her new life, to stop living for other people, start living for myself. It's in jeopardy, and that's because, well, her longevity's been taken, and she's got a literal world-ending threat, as Willoughby Kipling said, this deity who could swallow reality whole, of Immortus rising. So then this is where Jane kind of starts to mope in the episode, but we'll revisit this a little bit later. Meanwhile, with Rouge and Rita, we can't forget we had a very nice touching moment with them last episode where it seemed like they reconciled, and Rouge is pretty adamant about saving the universe, while Rita's just kind of feeling the age and just kind of wanting to go home and make some food or whatever. But this is when Rouge remembers that maybe somebody could have picked up where Niles Calder left off with the Immortus project at the Bureau of Normalcy and found a way to actually conjure Immortus, because I guess Niles would have done that himself if he would have figured out a way, but it just turns out that he got a piece of Immortus, as we know. So they come up with the idea to infiltrate the Bureau and just see how far things could have gone with whoever picked up the Immortus project, because after all, perhaps they are indeed the ones responsible for what the heck is going on right now. And it turns out to be true, because it's freaking Wally, and he was, lo and behold, the guy underneath the robe as the episode was ending. But meanwhile, with Larry, we can't forget at the end of last episode, he was taken by the Scissormen into the portal and actually at this little pocket dimension known as Orquwith. Luckily, Rama, Mr. 104, came to his rescue, saying to the Scissormen to release him and that he will take Larry to this aquarium himself, that little bony aquarium where it seems like, I don't know, all the operations of Immortus are happening with the revival. I don't know if in that little aquarium there's another little base where the light goes into when Larry's longevity was getting drained. I don't know if Immortus is in that. Again, one thing we were talking about in the live stream the other night is when Immortus gets revealed or rises, is it going to be like a CGI creation like the Candlemaker, or is this deity or whatever going to be in the physique of an actual actor? And if that's the case, maybe they could go down the actual General Immortus route. I have still all of these questions that I would love your theories on down in the comments below. I'm still not banking on General Immortus because with this Doom Patrol adaptation, they could really be doing something a little bit different, more innovative, yet still lending little bits and bobs here to that of Immortus in the comics. We do still very much so have the romance of Mr. 104 and Larry cooking. Obviously, in the very early stages, Larry says that I will find another way to stabilize your molecules. They open up that portal back to Doom Manor, and lo and behold, Cliff is there, and he's already picking up some tension between them. Mr. 104 is like, well, we haven't crossed that bridge yet, and Larry's just like, there's a bridge? There's a bridge? This is like Larry's first opportunity in what, like almost 100 freaking years, or however long it's been. Not 100 years, but you know what I mean, to actually have something tangible here. So it is entertaining seeing this unfold with his kind of shy but nervous energy, yet also excitement for what could possibly lie ahead. But this is when Keeg freaking pushes Larry back into the portal, and it was a bit of a shocking moment, but I think maybe most of you could figure out with little baby Keeg here that he is probably, even though this is what was revealed, but in this moment I was thinking this is probably because he wants to prevent Larry from whatever adult Keeg showed him in the future, and maybe he's thinking that Immortus could, just like what he's promised everyone else, somehow rewrite history, get rid of all the pain, and just make everything sunshine and rainbows. So Keeg is doing the one thing to protect Larry that he thinks he can only do, and that is to kind of give Larry's longevity to Immortus. And lo and behold, that is exactly what ended up happening. Meanwhile, with Rouge and Rita, they infiltrate the Bureau as like a janitor, and Rita's in blob mode in the little mop bucket, and they go to Section 99, which has a bunch of projects deemed so dangerous, and most unsurprisingly of Niles Calder's projects were sent there. But it turns out that the Immortus project was missing, and it was taken out by none other than Wally, so they go to find Wally's cell. But Rouge was initially struggling with this because she was, after all, the one to label Wally a weapon. This then eventually led to that tragic death of Malcolm, like going back into Wally's weapon, and so Wally was somewhat responsible in a way, but not really, but kind of. It was mainly Rouge for Malcolm's death. And in Wally's cell, there's been a bunch of like madness sprayed upon the walls. So you can see Immortus is rising, you can see like the little bony aquarium just kind of rising up. One thing I'm a bit confused about is, how does Wally, because it seems, when they eventually open the cell, like Rita freaks out a bit and smushes him, but he's fine, he's in Orquwith. So what I am wondering is when Immortus rises, if it is a bit of a deity-esque thing, maybe it will be Wally playing the role, like maybe this Immortus will take over Wally. This is something I'm unsure about. How did he get to Orquwith? How did he take the project out yet get locked away in the Bureau? I kind of have all of these questions. I'm pretty sure Wally was also maybe the one drawing the Space Case comics and bringing maybe even Tormanox to life. As we know, Orquwith is magic, and Derek and Vic draw things like the Butterfly and Mr. Invincible, and they come to life. So it seems like Wally has been orchestrating a lot of this. I mean, obviously, he's the one of the few robed people in Orquwith trying to make Immortus rise, but yeah, there's a little bit more going on here. So with Vic and Derek this episode, they drive back to Doom Manor, they find the portal open there, they find Cliff busted up after Keeg completely yeeted him back, and they go through the portal, and this is where they more or less reconcile. So like they're in a much better position now. And then it's kind of cool that Derek gets the chance to see what Vic somewhat signed up for. Even without his cyborg tech, this is quite a, superhero expedition, if you will, going through a portal to a pocket dimension. And the next scene with Cliff and Jane, probably my favorite scene in the episode. I mean, it's self-explanatory as to why. We have Jane somewhat moping in bed for the reasons we've kind of already discussed. Cliff apologizes. He forgot what mattered, and that's being there for the people he loves. And Jane's just like, she doesn't know if she deserves to be loved. And this is where Cliff does something so symbolic to show how much Jane means to him, and he even says, if people want to love you, there isn't really anything you can do to stop them. So he takes his oven mitt off, which we can't forget he was reserving that kind of first touch, even though ironically, and the joke being that he has touched the oven mitt, he has experienced the feel of cold or hot with regards to Darren Jones dying. But either way, forget all of that. Technically, he's reserved that to have that touch for his family, holding his grandson. But he takes it off here, and he holds Jane's hand in his. And Jane, knowing what this means to Cliff, her getting emotional. I'm a sucker for moments like this. It's a fan favorite dynamic in the show, Cliff and Jane. So this moment was very beautiful. One thing I was a little bit confused about that I feel like the episode could have connected a little bit better with is that, when Vic and Derek went into the portal shut behind them. So I was wondering, how did Cliff and Jane get to Orquwith? I'm guessing maybe it was Kipling, because Kipling did arrive there wounded, as we already went over, and he warned them about what's going down and how powerful this threat is. So maybe this was a scene that was in the script but got cut from the episode. You could argue that Kipling took them there or opened up a portal, but at the same time, Jane and Cliff walked away from him. So yeah, I just felt like even if this is a bit of a nitpick, that could have been connected a little bit better. And so, basically near the end of the episode, quickly going back to what we discussed with Larry, he's brought in the temple. Keeg shows him the vision that adult Keeg showed him, and that's him essentially getting munched by butts, and he flies out into space and eventually to the sun because his radiation is leaking. And Keeg thinks that this is inevitable, but Immortus can prevent that. Outside of the bony Sacrarian, we have Vic and Derek summon Mr. Invincible, but he just turns back into paper. We don't really know why, but I'm assuming that's to do with Wally Sage being the master of Orquwith, this realm. So maybe he can just basically dispel that back into its paper mode. In this moment, Wally reveals himself, and he says that Cliff is the final piece of the puzzle because it's his longevity that is still yet to be collected, but that's the only one until Immortus rises. But it doesn't get taken by the end of this episode. I mean, they're in a very, very dangerous position. So maybe when the next episode picks up at some point in time in the future, this could be March, April, who knows, they might get out of this situation. But Cliff's oven mitt tells him, did you remember to close the freezer all the way? And he's like, oh crap. And that's when we cut to the werebutt that Cliff spared because he couldn't quite go through with killing it, and the temperature had cooled enough for that werebutt to get free. And I suppose this is how the inevitability, I suppose you could have, the inevitability that Keeg was worried about kind of was inevitable. The butt is escaped, and I suppose we'll start the Buttpocalypse. But don't forget, this is all on top of the Immortus Rising threat, which makes me wonder if this Buttpocalypse was inevitable, and we saw that in the future, that's what happened. They went back, they tried to sort this out, but now we know it's still happening anyway. Well, in that future that we saw with the future Cyborg and everyone, what happened with Immortus in that future? That's a bit of a brainy, timey-wimey thing for me to wrap my head around. I don't know. And that's where the mid-season finale ends. So in terms of like leaving a mid-season finale off on something to pick up with in episode 7 at some point in time in the future, it is a good one because it's a bit of a cliffhanger. And I'm wondering how the Doom Patrol are going to get out of this. Will Cliff's longevity be taken regardless, and Immortus will rise? You have to think that will probably happen because I think we all want to see Immortus and have a bit of fun with that. But maybe we can't forget that Rita and Rouge could swing in somehow. Again, if they just appear in Orquwith, I'll be like, how did you get there? So hopefully if they do arrive, that gets explained. I don't know. But maybe they won't even get there and Cliff's longevity gets taken and they just get out of Orquwith and then they all regroup at Doom Manor and they're like, okay, not only do we have the Buttpocalypse happening now, since the werebutt escaped, we have Immortus rising with all of the longevity collected from each Doom Patrol member. what do we do now? So that just about ends this recap, review, and breakdown. Let me know what you thought of this. Did you enjoy it? Do you feel like it's left off in a good place to pick up with, you know, in terms of there's a big problem, arguably 6 episodes in now. You've got 2 main threats, Buttpocalypse and Immortus. What do you think could happen next? We don't have a trailer for me to showcase at the end of this video because there is no trailer for part 2 just yet. I'm guessing they've got maybe extra VFX to do. Maybe the break is for some other reason, because I think that reasoning applies more to Titans, but Doom Patrol's been in the can for quite a while now, so maybe it's just a strategy from HBO Max. I really don't know why specifically we actually have breaks this year in Titan Season 4 and Doom Patrol Season 4, but really looking forward to seeing what you guys have to say about the mid-season finale of Doom Patrol Season 4. If you like this video, guys, I'd really appreciate you hitting that like button. Takes 2 seconds. Maybe subscribe if you haven't subscribed to make sure you stay up to date with future episode reviews, but also a promo/trailer breakdown for part 2 that I will be uploading on this channel when we eventually get that. I can't tell you when we will, because we still don't even have a date for Titans, and that went on break a little bit sooner than this show, obviously. But I'm going to love you and leave you now, so thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you fellow Doomies in the next video. Goodbye.